So we're talking about this union, this marriage between our heart and our brain. It's a very, very different way to think about things in the West, very different from what we are traditionally invited to consider. When I was in school, I was taught that the brain is the master organ in the body. And when I am working with indigenous people, often I'm taught that the heart is the master organ in the body. And I want to just say to you that both of those are valid in some circumstances, but the truth is they're both incomplete. Because what we now know is that while the brain, our brain, releases the chemistry into our bodies for rejuvenation and healing and hormonal balance and all these other things, our brain receives many of the instructions that tell it what to do from the heart. And we are the ones that create the instructions through our thoughts, feelings, emotions, beliefs that we are creating in our hearts. Because now, as you remember, the studies are showing our heart has the ability to think on its own, to remember and to feel. We're having a new sense of what this heart-brain connection is all about. And as I mentioned before, we've been conditioned to use them independently, one or the other. So I'm acknowledging that I know this is a very different way to think about our heart and our brain, to think about them as two organs that support a single common neural network. And just in case there's any question in your mind, that network, it is about the nerves. It's about the spinal cord between the heart and the brain and the vagus nerve between the heart and the brain. And this conversation between the heart and the brain, it fascinates me. It's a big conversation that's happening in every moment of every day. But the thing is, most of the conversation is in fact coming from our heart to our brain. That's where the thickest nerve bundle is to support that conversation. There is a lesser conversation from the brain through the spinal cord back into the heart. So while it's possible, the brain doesn't say too much to the heart. The heart has a lot to say to the brain. So we've explored many of the potentials that come from awakening this marriage, this union between the heart and the brain. And there are others. We're just barely scratching the surface. But what I'd like to do now is share with you a technique so that you can tap these potentials in your life when you choose to do so. What scientists know is that every moment of every day, as I mentioned, there's this conversation. It's a conversation between the heart and the brain. The heart is speaking to the brain, and the quality of the conversation that comes from the heart and the brain tells the brain what chemistry to release into the body. So for example, when we're feeling emotions that we would typically consider negative, and I don't like to characterize emotions as negative or positive, but I'm doing this so you get a sense for what we're doing here. When we have emotions such as anger, hate, jealousy, rage, what you're seeing on your screen is an actual printout of the quality of the signal from the heart to the brain. And you can see it's very chaotic. It's a very jagged signal. It's a rough signal. And it's that chaotic, jagged, rough signal that signals chaotic chemistry in your brain. This is the kind of chemistry that tells us that we need high amounts of adrenaline, high amounts of cortisol, the stress hormones, to respond to something quickly in life. That's a good thing for a few moments. You don't want to live your life day in and day out like this. If you can create a feeling in your heart of 0.1 hertz, then that feeling is going to harmonize your heart and your brain. Now, in indigenous traditions that I've been with, they have techniques to do this. There are a vast and myriad number of applications for the one technique that we're going to do right now, and this technique is the doorway for all the potentials that we have just listed. By achieving heart-brain coherence, it opens the door and we get to choose. It's like once we're in this place, now we can do this, 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 or this. We can do subconscious, we can go into intuition, we can simply use this technique before we go to bed at night to begin to sleep and trigger a healing within our bodies. We can do it first thing in the morning. We can do it before our yoga. We can do it before our martial arts. We can do it before our qigong, our healing practice, any of these things, because everything goes better with heart-brain coherence. And that's all we're doing, is we're optimizing the conversation between the heart and the brain, between your heart and your brain. So how do we do this? 3 steps. The first step is to simply shift your awareness from your mind into your heart. And what I've found is in the Western traditions, for many people, that's easier said than done. I'll ask people, are you in your heart? And they'll say, yep, I'm in my heart. But what they are really doing is they're still in their brain thinking about what it would be like if they're in their heart. This is where the indigenous traditions come in. Our ancestors told us, and when I spend time with my indigenous friends, I say, how do you guys do this? And they say it helps if you can gently touch your heart center, physically, in a way that's comfortable for you. In the Mayan traditions, you see an open palm right on the heart. In many of the Middle Eastern traditions, you see the same thing. In the Buddhist traditions, you see a prayer mudra that physically touches the sternum. The key is, any of those things creates a gentle touch, a physical sensation right over the heart center, and your awareness will always go to the place where you feel the sensation. That's the key. So if you can create a touch over your heart, your awareness will go there. First step. Second step, very simple. Slow your breathing a little bit slower than typical. Maybe 5 seconds inhale, 5 seconds exhale. And here's why that's powerful. Because the only time you would ever slow your breathing and breathe in that way is when you feel safe. When you feel that you're in a place that's safe and you're not threatened and you're not vigilant of your surroundings. So you're telling your body you're in a place that's safe. Slow your breathing. Third step, and this is the key, is to begin to feel the feeling that creates 0.1 hertz. Feel the feeling that sets up the coherence between your heart and your brain. How do we do that? I gave it away earlier, we've already mentioned it. Scientists have found, at the Institute of Heart Math, their researchers have found that there are 4 key words that work almost 100% of the time for everyone. Appreciation for anything or anyone. Gratitude for anything or anyone. Care and compassion. If you can feel one or some combination of those feelings in your heart while you're breathing as if your breath is coming from your heart, touching your heart center, now you're setting up this communication between the heart and the brain. Now you are triggering those neurons to begin to reach out and find other neurons to strengthen this connection. And that's why I mentioned before, it takes about 72 hours, 3 days to build these networks. So that means the more you do what we're about to do right now, the stronger this connection becomes in your life.